Loss of human life is always tragic. It is more tragic when that loss is caused by a violent act, whether justified or criminal. Such is the case in the killing of Mchael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, last August at the hands of police officer Darren Wilson. For months we have heard protesters cry out for justice in this case. Yet when our justice system ran its course, there was not only disbelief and feelings of justice being denied, there were some who went on a rampage of criminal acts. A grand jury found there was not sufficient probable cause that Wilson committed a crime when he shot and killed Brown. The grand jury returned a verdict that no indictment nor trial would be forthcoming. Outrage continues at the loss of an unarmed black teenager. The outrage is understandable. At the same time, justice prevailed, according to the grand jury and our system of law. Justice sometimes results in a trial, which many called for in this case. At other times, justice does not live up to our demands and results in no indictment. But justice was done. Listening to some of the protesters, as well as some commentators called on by the media, the death of Brown seems to have been swept away and replaced by a need to redress the wrongs and hurts of 200 years. Instead of focusing on the tragedy, some found this the perfect reason to rampage, go on a crime spree, or spit out anger over events and harms committed long in the past and before most were even born. For many of those burning Ferguson, I questioned seeking justice. Instead, the grand jury verdict and the death of Brown was a sideshow pushed aside to justify looting, burning, and other criminal activity. All this under the guise of trying to get justice. Yes, the nation does need to have a conversation and sit down between those of African descent and those of European descent. Yes, for far too many, white or black, instead of allowing the country to become the fabled melting pot, they would rather keep picking at the scab until blood is running again. There are some attempting to bind the wounds. There are some attempting to repair the breaches in the wall. There are also those, some even famous or with large followings, who have an agenda and need to keep the nation torn and divided. Some of these have corrupted the American dream by seeing racial divides as a means to pad the coffers to keep the money flowing. This ought not to be. Saint or sinner, the death of Mchael Brown was and is a tragedy. Saint or sinner, Officer Darren Wilson must live the rest of his life with the knowledge he took the life of another human being, justified though the grand jury may have deemed it to be. Time to let old wounds mend. Time to build a bright future together. Time to be Americans, not African Americans, or Asian Americans, or Hispanic Americans, but just Americans. Have there been crimes committed by even those in authority in the past? Absolutely. Are we forever going to let the sins of the fathers and mothers from centuries ago extract punishment on the sons and daughters now and into the future? There are far too many in both the white and the black communities who allow animus to fester and be passed on from generation to generation. Last night in Ferguson and in communities across the nation, it seems that the writer of Hebrews got it right. Lest any root of bitterness springs up within you and defiles many. Time to cut out the cancer and live in true freedom. From the cornfield, I'm not sure how I would feel if either of my sons was shot and killed by a police officer or anyone for that matter. What I do know is that lashing out in hatred would not honor either of my son's memory. As the prophet once said, unless the Lord build the house, city, nation, the workman labors in vain.